Food is one of the most important things humans need in order to survive, although many of us do not think about who made the food and what it means to us. For Chiang Lee, that was different. Coming Home Again by Chiang Lee is a deep and personal writing about the time with his mother and cookings, and how there were many times where they were brought together, but also at times separated. There are many times where they were connected and or disconnected using food, which includes moments such as returning home to cook for the family, his mother making a meal for Lee, and making food after her passing. One significant moment where food was the center of importance was when Lee cooked for his mother while she was sick. The story starts by showing about the living conditions of the mother and how it was affecting everyone around her. Quote, when my mother began using the electric pump that fed her liquids and medication, we moved her to the family room. Sometimes you would hear her halt after only a few steps to catch her breath or steady her balance. Whatever you were doing was instantly suspended by a pall of silence. End quote. The story starts off with the conditions she is in, showing she has liquids and medication, which is a brutal yet vivid image of how sick she was. We later find out what disease she was suffering from. Quote, I've always thought it was particularly cruel that the cancer was in her stomach and that for a long time at the end she couldn't eat. End quote. Lee expresses and explains that his mother is suffering from stomach cancer, which is ironic because of how much she loves food, and although she is sick, she uses it as a way to connect with her child, which is when Lee cooked for her. Quote, I wasn't cooking for my mother, but for the rest of us. When she first moved downstairs, she was still eating, though scantily, more just to taste what we were having than from any genuine desire for food. The point was simply to sit together at the kitchen table and array ourselves like a family again. My mother would gently set herself down in her customary chair near the stove. I sat across from her, my father and sister to my left and right, and crammed in the center was all the food I had made. A spicy codfish stew, say, or a casserole of gingery beef dishes that in my youth she had prepared for us 100 times. End quote. Lee shows his love for his family here. Although he cooks because people want to eat, Lee shows that he is cooking for him and the family when he says, quote, to sit together at the kitchen table and array ourselves like a family again, end quote. Yes, he was cooking for them, but he was cooking for a way of connection and being together again since he left for college. In paragraph 4, Lee says it had been 10 years since we've all lived together in the house, which at 15 I had left to attend boarding school in New Hampshire. Lee explains that at the time he had not been home for over 10 years studying. When he came back, he arrived to a sick mom and used these final days of cooking to be close with her and the family again before her passing. We even see Lee cook a familiar meal his mother had made from his youth. He could have chosen any other meal in the world to make for his family, but he chose to cook a meal his entire family could relate to, bring back memories so they could be together again. Another example used in Coming Home Again was when the mother decided to cook a big meal for the family. Quote, she lifted the top and began unpacking plastic containers, and I thought she would never stop. One after the other, they came out, each with a dish that traveled well. A salted stewed meat, rolls of Korean-style sushi. I opened a container of radish, kimchi, and suddenly the room bloomed with its odor. And I reveled in the very peculiar sensation, which perhaps only true kimchi lovers know, of simultaneously drooling and gagging as I breathed it all in. For the next few minutes, they watched me eat. I'm not certain that I was even hungry, but after weeks of pork parmigiana and chicken patties and wax beans, I suddenly realized I had lost all the savor in my life, and it seemed I couldn't get enough of it back. I ate and I ate so much and so fast that I actually went to the bathroom and vomited. End quote. This is another example of a deep connection food brings the family together. Although the mother doesn't have to do it, she cooks a lot of food for Lee. At first, Lee didn't realize what was going on, but overall, he sees the endless amount of food coming out of the bag. This here is an example of unconditional and endless love. She does it because she cares for him and wants to show she loves him. One final example that showed the relationship between food and the family used in the story was after the mother passed away. Quote, after her death, when my father and I were the only ones left in the house, drifting through the rooms like ghosts, I sometimes tried to make that meal for him. Though it was too much for two, I made each dish anyway, taking as much care as I could, but nothing turned out quite right. Not the color, not the smell. At the table, neither of us said much of anything. End quote. When his mother passed away, Lee tried to do his best to cook for his father. Although he tried his best, it is not the same. Lee misses his mom, and while he does his best to cook for his dad, it is not the same as his mother does. This is a clear disconnect where, although he wants to cook the food she made, it is not the same, and they miss the way she made food and her presence. Coming Home Again is a story that shows how food can be used as a way to connect or disconnect with family. The story Chang-rae Lee shows how food develops and changes his relationship with his mother after she gets stomach cancer. They bond after she gets sick, and these moments include returning home to cook for the family, his mother making a meal for Lee, and making food after her passing.